Our junior high dress code was a pain. Most teachers didn't care as long as kids weren't distracting. The principal of the junior high, however, insisted on enforcing every single rule. A friend of mine wore a long-sleeve shirt under a tank top. The principal insisted she couldn't wear the tank top because tank tops were against the dress code. But she couldn't take off the tank top because her shirt was slightly see-through, another violation. Instead of allowing her to simply wear the tank over her long-sleeve shirt, she sent her home. I decided this wouldn't stand. I studied every rule in the dress code to prove how ridiculous it was. I started off small and worked my way up. No open-toed sandals, this one was easy. I wore open-toed high heels. Nothing in the rules against high heels, and the open-toed rule only applied to sandals the way it was written. Shirts must be tucked into pants. Belts must be worn through belt loops. I knocked out 2 here by wearing a skirt. Skirts, or at least the one I wore, had no belt loops and weren't considered pants, so I was not required to tuck in anything or wear a silly belt. Backpacks must be plain colored with no pins, excessive accessories. I picked up a briefcase from a resale shop and slapped it with every sticker I could find. Any random logo or inspirational sticker I had lying around got slapped on it. Technically, a briefcase isn't a backpack. No costumes allowed. I verified this. My school considered a costume to be anything only worn for a certain period or for a certain reason. If you wore it all day, it was an outfit, not a costume. I abused this one so badly. Once a week, I dressed up as a lawyer, a clown, a hippie, a Shakespearean actor, a superhero, a cameraman, etc. Complete, of course, with as many accessories as I could handle. So long as I never took them off, this made gym class interesting. They weren't considered part of a costume. I ended up letting kids pick out what I would dress as each week. No crazy hairstyles. I kept my hair natural colors and kept the styles as something that was at least popular at one point. The beehive took forever, but was the most satisfying. I earned bonus points if I could find pictures of adults who were still wearing their hair like that currently. Shirts are not allowed to have logos or prints, only patterns and consistent designs. Consistent designs were my loophole here. No print, fine, but consistent print made specifically to look like a design. At this point, the principal was going mad, and she didn't let this one slide. She insisted I change, which I expected. Gym shorts must reach students' knees or be as long as their fingertips. Guess whose fingertips reach about 3 inches below her bottom? Mine. I went from wearing a shirt that said, "Bite me," all over it to an outfit that included short shorts. But my shorts were still longer than my fingers. I even offered to change back into my other clothes. At this point in the year, we were almost done with school. Other kids were following my lead, and we were driving the principal mad. I decided to kick it up a bit further. I attacked what should have been the most basic rules. No sunglasses. Rose-colored glasses aren't considered sunglasses because you can easily see through them. Still, the principal jerked them off my face and insisted I wouldn't get them back until the end of the day. No tank tops. I wore a dress with spaghetti straps. It wasn't a shirt, so I wasn't breaking a rule. Belts must be plain with no dangerous materials. Plain it must be, so plain I went. I wore a shoelace as a belt. I wore a braided yarn string as a belt. I even wore a spandex band sewn to my pants as a belt. No Crocs. Crocs are not the only rubber shoe, my friends. I found every off-brand Croc I could get a hold of. Finally, at the end of the year, I wore one of my most outrageous outfits. I wore a see-through dress, think bathing suit cover-up over leggings, and a shirt that barely classified as a t-shirt. I wore shoes with a 4-inch cork heel. I had on fake glasses, no lenses, and a 4-inch wide headband. I wore bangles up to my elbows and anklets on each foot. I had a box to carry my books in that was decorated with blinking battery-powered fairy lights. I walked right up to the principal and gave her a smile. Kids paused to see what would happen. I waited to see what she would say. We'd had this conversation all year. She would point out the rule I broke, and I would prove how I didn't. She sighed. Principal. Fine, but if even one teacher says you're distracting to the class, you change clothes. We shook on it. The only thing I had to ditch was most of the bangles. They kept clunking while I wrote. In the end, I ended up getting the dress code rewritten and amended, and the principal implemented a new procedure where dress code violations were not sent home. They were noted, and students had to wear a piece of duct tape indicating the specific violation. If you forgot a belt, you put a piece of tape on a belt loop. Kids only started to get in trouble after 3 dress code violations in the same week. Since she lightened up on the dress code and how harshly it was punished, she stopped having trouble with kids breaking it all the time. It worked out for everyone. Edit: because everyone keeps asking for photos, I am going to look. But this was several years ago. I'm done with college now. And besides the fact we didn't take a lot of photos because this wasn't exactly an odd thing for me to do. We've also had several hurricanes and floods that ruined most of my childhood evidence. If photos proved my life, I was born at 18. Story 2. I used to work for a marketing company that serviced small and medium-sized businesses across America. It was a multi-billion-dollar revenue company. The chief executive officer was a true rags to riches story. He joined the company right after he got out of jail in his early 20s for a small prohibited substance charge and worked his way up over 20 years to eventually become the chief executive officer of the company. The chief executive officer strongly believed that the success of the company did not come from the brilliant and intelligent minds that he hired for his executive team, but the hard work, sweat, and tears of the in-field sales representatives. Service representatives made sure the customer services were properly installed. Collection representatives chased after customers who fell behind on their payments, and sales managers. He would often say, "Without sales, we don't have the revenue to pay your salaries. Without customer service, customers will drop us faster than we can bill them. Without collection representatives, we'd lose too many accounts due to non-payment. And without sales managers to hold it all together, we'd fall apart." And he had a rule. Every single executive team member would spend 1 full week of each quarter in the field with a sales manager, customer service representative, collections representative, or sales representative. In addition, when they are in the field, they are to submit to whoever they've been assigned to, and they may not pull rank. This rule applied to everyone, including the chief executive officer. I know this because the chief executive officer personally rode along with me for 5 days in the field. He was a legitimately cool guy. I got a story at the end about this. So, apparently, we had hired a new vice president of marketing from a major brand that I'm sure everyone in this sub would know of. Anyway, apparently, the first time he went in the field, the vice president of marketing pulled rank on a sales manager, and the sales manager reported this directly to the chief executive officer. A new quarter went by, and I got an email stating that the vice president of marketing would be joining me in the field on such and such week. Okay, cool. Not the first time I had some higher up come out and ride with me. But about an hour later, I got a call from my chief executive officer. Chief executive officer: PJ, the vice president of marketing is going in the field with you. Me: yes, sir, I got the email. Chief executive officer: PJ, I picked you because when I was in the field with you, you seemed like the kind of guy that wouldn't be bullied or let someone run all over you. Me: okay, well, thank you. Chief executive officer: this vice president is new to the company, and the last time he went in the field, he pulled rank. I've told him not to pull rank again, and if he does, I want you to call me as soon as you can. PJ: I understand. Chief executive officer: thank you. The vice president meets me up. Honestly, for the first 2 days, everything was fine. However, on the 3rd day, I was meeting with an existing client. This client was difficult to please. He would always say we weren't worth the money, but I knew we were because I could see his results. And over the years, this client's business had grown a lot. Said client would beat us up over pricing. I'd stand firm, give him a 3% price increase, and offer him upgrades on top. He'd haggle me down to a 1.5% price increase, and we'd sign the contract. Now I told the vice president what would happen, that it would be a long sales call and a difficult, high-tense one. But to let me handle it, I've dealt with the client quite a bit and was well prepared. Now this meeting with the client lasted 2.5 hours, but I'll get to the point. The client wanted a discount and was threatening to go to our competitor. He wouldn't. That's when the vice president spoke up and said, I'm the vice president, and I'll personally give you a 15% discount on your current plan if you agree to sign a 1-year contract. The customer said 20%. The vice president said, "Split the difference, 17.5%, and we have a deal." They agreed. I was mad as heck. One thing to mention, my commissions depended on me generating more revenue, and this vice president just messed me over. We get in my car, and I go, "You pulled rank. You shouldn't have done that." He said, "I got the deal done." I said, "Had you kept your mouth shut, I'd have gotten more money, not given 20% back." He goes, "We got the contract signed." I said, "We gave away tens of thousands of dollars that we didn't need to." He goes, "Look, I'm the vice president." I then called my chief executive officer. He saw the name pop up on my car's Bluetooth. Chief executive officer answered. Chief executive officer, "PJ, how are you doing?" PJ. The vice president pulled rank on me and gave my customer a 17.5% discount on his current plan right as I was about to close him for more money. Chief executive officer, "That's not right. Where is the vice president?" PJ. "You're on speaker, he can hear you." Chief executive officer, "Excellent. Hey, vice president." Vice president, "Yes, sir." Chief executive officer, "Tell me what happened." Vice president told his side of the story, which he admitted the truth, but also admitted to pulling rank and giving the customer a discount. Chief executive officer, "Okay, thanks for your honesty. You're fired." Vice president, "Excuse me." Chief executive officer, "You're fired. You have a 1-year probation clause. You're done. You don't pull rank when in the field." Vice president, "You can't do this." Chief executive officer, "I just did. You are to get on a plane, come back to your office, and clean it out." PJ, "Take Mr. Vice President back to his hotel and drop him off." PJ, "Sure, no problem." And for the next 20 minutes, I had an awkward car ride back to my former vice president's hotel. Later in an all-hands-on meeting, the chief executive officer made sure to talk about how if an executive is in the field and pulls rank, it's a fireable offense for the executive, and he wants all the sales representatives, sales managers, customer service representatives, and collection representatives to know that. Side story on this chief executive officer. The company had a data plan which gave us 4G on our iPads, phones, and laptops. Well, the company changed the service plan and our data plan went down to only our phones, and we had to hotspot off that. They said this move would save us $80,000 a month. We had like 4 Zizzos and Tilda employees in the field. Well, 2 months later, we had a conference. We had 3 conferences a year, and after the conference, everyone went to the hotel bar. That's when I approached my chief executive officer with another sales representative and talked to him about how much of a pain in the neck it was to hotspot all our devices and how much it drained our phone batteries and blah blah, and that I get it saves money, but it also costs productivity. The chief executive officer nodded and said, "Tell you what, in 2 weeks, the chief information officer is supposed to go in the field. I'll have him go in the field with you. And if he agrees that it's costing our representatives productivity and causing too many workflow issues, I'll bring back 4G data to all devices." The chief information officer was there and said, "Chief information officer, you're going to XYZ area, and you will be riding with PJ. Pay attention to how he uses his 4G data, and if you think we should go back to the old plan where all devices had 4G. The chief information officer went into the field with me. On the 3rd day at breakfast, he said, "Last night, I called the chief executive officer, and I said, 'Yeah,' and he said, 'I made a recommendation that we go back to our old data plan and ensure all your devices have 4G data. It's obviously creating productivity issues, and when you look at the cost per user, it's not that great.'" Question: Do you still work there? If so, why not? Answer: No, I do not work there. I was much better at maintaining and growing existing clients than acquiring new ones. The company ended up buying another company and started laying people off, and made acquiring new business more important than maintaining the current business, meaning I was going to be let go. So I quit and switched jobs before they fired me. Comment: Sounds like a great chief executive officer. He's what I wish all chief executive officers would be. Answer: He's still a ruthless business person. I'll give you an example of what he did to a lot of managers. When he bought out his competitor, he had a lot of redundancy and a lot of managers on rock-solid employment contracts which he couldn't just lay off, so he took the managers with those contracts and turned them into phone representatives. Imagine being a sales manager or even a vice president and getting a call and being told you are no longer a manager or a vice president and you're demoted, not even an outside sales representative, but an inside phone representative. Those managers obviously didn't perform very well after being demoted and would be written up for poor performance and let go. I know of a vice president in the company who was demoted to a phone representative position and literally got written up for poor performance for his first month. Oh, and he was still getting his vice president's salary per the contract. They could change his position duties, but they could not pay him less, and the only way they could fire him would be through poor performance. Also, another thing he did, he invested a lot in automation during this time so he could lay off even more people. I had a talk with my manager one day, and he said the chief executive officer was obsessed with revenue per employee number and was determined to drive that number up. Question: I want to work for them. Can you give me the company name, etc.? Answer: no, for 2 reasons. First reason, the company is currently not hiring and actively laying people off. Their primary revenue comes from small and medium-sized businesses. As you can imagine, due to the economic circumstance, those small businesses can no longer afford to pay their bills, which includes my former employer. As a result, they've had to downsize. I'm sure the company will survive. They had crazy healthy margins, and I heard right before the economic downfall, they had a lot of cash on hand for another acquisition of some competitors which they didn't go through with because I bet they are using that cash to survive. Secondly, I don't want to be identified. Question: what's my opinion of this chief executive officer? Answer: honestly, nothing but respect. The dude is inspiring. He is also not someone I would want to be. He's an obvious workaholic. His personal net worth is in excess of $100+ million, and he doesn't need to work ever again. But according to all the vice president's managers I spoke to, the dude literally works 7 days a week at all hours of the day. Put it this way, he travels so much in his biggest markets, he keeps a car that he bought since it's cheaper than buying a rental every time he flies in. Question: what did I take away from my time with them? Answer: honestly, I think a lot of companies could learn a lot from this company. Seriously, why more companies don't force their top leadership to work within the ranks on a regular basis is beyond me. It's one gripe I have with my current employer. This is how he reduced his sales staff. When he bought out the competitor, he removed all sales objectives. He then made maintaining growing current clients worth 1x. He made acquiring new clients worth 5x. Also, losing revenue cost you 1.5x. Everyone was ranked against everyone, and he placed everyone in quadrants. If you fell in the bottom 25% for 2 months in a row, you got laid off. And this created some interesting results. For example, I had a family emergency. I took off for 1 week. For that 1 week, I did $0 in business. However, because people who were ranked above me lost revenue, I rose in ranking. And the first week I came back, I closed on a new business, increased revenue, and fell in rank because others around me did more. It created some depressing performance reviews. A coworker of mine closed a decent-sized new business, and he thought for sure that would save his job. It didn't, because another person sold more than he did, and it kept him in the bottom 25%, and he was fired. Thursday evening, he was so excited about his new account, thinking it saved his job. Friday afternoon, he was let go.